I'm going to do today over the next 10 minutes is cover 3 key points about imposter syndrome, what it is, why it's important, and how we can leverage it, which might sound counterintuitive because we don't often associate imposter syndrome with positive benefits. Now, that's not to make light of the situation, because imposter syndrome, if it's left unchecked, can cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. Because when we feel we're out of our depth and we feel uncomfortable, our brains get flooded with emotions that then turn into hormones that fly around our body and contribute towards anxiety and stress. So I would say that if you feel or have felt yourself tipping into that anxious place, then obviously do speak to somebody. But for some of us, it may be imposter syndrome to a certain degree, but certainly imposter thoughts are quite common. So what I'd like to do now is ask you to raise your virtual thumb, or you can actually use your real thumb, if any of the following statements resonate with you. Have you ever felt in a situation that you are going to get found out? Now, this can be about your career, your business, anything else in life. You don't need to tell me the situation, just have you ever felt, I'm going to get found out? If you have, put your thumbs up. Have you ever felt that you only got this job by a fluke of nature because nobody else wanted the job, because you were just in the right place at the right time, that you need to know the answers about everything and you feel really out of your depth? I can see a few hands and thumbs going up. Thank you very much. You can put your thumbs down now, but I'm going to put my thumb up as well because I've certainly experienced it a few times. So do you want the good news or the bad news? Let me give you both. The good news is you're not alone. If you put your thumb up, you're not alone. The bad news is you're not alone, because 70% of executives will suffer from imposter syndrome, imposter thoughts at some point in their career. And 84% of business owners, entrepreneurs will also suffer from imposter syndrome and imposter thoughts. Now, that's why groups such as Hivemind are so important, because for business owners, you can talk about your business and talk about what's happening and how you want to grow and develop your business. I will just say that other masterminds are also available, but that's the benefit of groups like Hivemind. Just a little plug there, guys. Anyway, so imposter syndrome can feel different to different people, but it's very much linked to confidence. It can feel very disconcerting, uncomfortable, quite scary. You just feel like something's not right. And it's important to be able to talk about it and face it and deal with it. So let me talk about a bit about my career. When I was 29, a couple of years ago, I was propelled to the board of a large corporate organisation. Now, one might think that's quite a daunting proposition, but actually for me it wasn't, because as you can see from the book there, I do a lot of DISC profiling, which is all about assessing your workplace behaviours. And where I was really suited me. You know, I'm quite a driver type. That's not the entirety of how I work, but I'm quite driven, quite results driven. And that really resonated with the board, the place where I was, how it worked, how the organisation got stuff done. So it was like, great, you know, I've really made it now. But fast forward a few years, when I was asked to come in to a public-private organisation, and the situation was very, very different. I walked into an organisation where I knew my intentions to lead were to help people fulfil happiness in their careers, find a career that would support the rest of their lives. My intentions were good. I knew what I'd done before had worked, but this was a very, very different environment. I was coming from the private sector to pull together the private sector team and also about 3 areas of the NHS, the public sector organisations. So it was a hugely complex project. There were lots of processes we had to go through. There were lots of emotions about this outsourcing arrangement. And it was the biggest one in the UK at that time. And it was incredibly complex. And I suddenly realised, oh my goodness, I've never really worked in the public sector before. I've worked in really fast organisations and I feel a bit out of my depth here and I don't know what to do about it. Because I think it was in my early 30s. I was still, you know, hadn't had any development training, etc. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get found out. I don't really understand the public sector. They're going to know. I need to know all the answers. I'm going to get found out. And actually, on top of that, my natural style today of using my driver type, moving fast, moving quickly, I realized that's just not going to cut it here. That is not going to work. I need to really embrace different styles. So I realized what got me here wouldn't get me there. And I decided to really use my fear as fuel. Now, I nearly burnt out doing it, but what I did was research different leadership models, different leadership styles. I read different books. I spoke to different people, all of this on top of doing the day job and trying to bring together these organizations with the rest of the leadership team. So it's really challenging, and I wish I'd had help at the time. Now, in hindsight, that was such a beneficial experience for me because it made me realize that actually, when you're leading a team, you have to be able to see the whole person in front of you and adapt to your style, that there isn't a one size fits all. It's not just about doing things one way. And I really understood the concept of flexible leadership, which is something I talk to my clients about. And it's very common. The imposter syndrome is very, very common. You know, I think most of my clients have at some point had a crisis of confidence and or imposter syndrome. I've been working with someone recently who's a HR manager. It's her first time as an HR manager, and she's really, really nervous because she's been given the feedback that she needs to speak up more in meetings. Now, she came from a very large, noisy family, and her default position was not to speak up. So we're having to reframe some of those behaviours, rewire some of those beliefs about speaking up. She also feels that as the HR manager, she needs to know everything there is to know about the business, that she should be complete. Notice the word should. It's a very interesting word. Sometimes there's a lot of blame and guilt attached to that word, so catch yourself if you use it a lot. She feels that she really needs to know all the answers. So what we've been doing is really counting through her strengths, adding to her strengths, recognizing her strengths, letting go of perfectionism, which is another trait that does come into play with imposter syndrome sometimes. The idea that, oh, I have to do it perfectly, which when we think that can lead us to procrastinate actually, or over prepare. So we've done a skills audit, a strengths audit, and we've gone through some training to really help her develop her own style and understand her style, that she can still be her, but she can still speak up, and she doesn't really need to know all the answers. And as a leader, it's okay not to know all the answers. So it can be scary, it can be disconcerting, but if we pay attention to the imposter doesn't have to be a nasty villain smacking us over the head with a mallet. The imposter can be, maybe it's the postman at the door with a letter, and if you open that letter, you're going to learn something. Or somebody knocking at the door, invite it in for a cup of tea, have a conversation with it and understand, okay, let's see if I can use my fear in a different way. Can I neutralize this somehow? We have a tendency to label our emotions and thoughts as negative or positive. Can we say that the imposter has a message and a feeling for us that is simply information? It is simply something we need to learn and do differently. Because if I go back to my experience at the NHS, it was such a huge growth spurt. And when the imposter crept up again a few years later, I knew how to face it and deal with it. So whilst it is very disconcerting, uncomfortable, I really believe that if you have a conversation with your imposter and ask it, what are you trying to tell me? What's the information I need to learn? And it's quite challenging to do so, but reframe it into a piece of information or a development opportunity for you. So imposter syndrome, good or bad, feels comfortable at times, but often a great opportunity for self-development.